Elizabeth Taylor once said, "Maggie the cat is alive. I'm alive. Why are you afraid of the truth?" But in 1964, she made one mistake that haunted her for decades. She trusted the wrong person. She confided in a journalist, believing he was helping her write her memoir. For months, they met in private, in hotel rooms and on ships, where she would pour whiskey, light a cigarette, and open up about her most personal secrets. She never knew he was secretly recording every conversation. Half a century later, those tapes came to light. They revealed a very different Elizabeth than the one the public thought they knew. She even described her hidden side with a name, Cellophane Elizabeth. The reality behind the glamorous image was far darker. Elizabeth Rosamond Taylor was born on February 27, 1932, in London. From the very beginning, her life had the makings of a Hollywood story. Her parents were wealthy American art dealers living in the upscale Hampstead Garden suburb. They owned an art gallery on Bond Street and mingled with famous artists and politicians. One family friend, Colonel Victor Cazalet, was so close to them that he became her unofficial godfather. Despite the high society lifestyle, danger was approaching. In 1939, with World War II looming, U.S. Ambassador Joseph P. Kennedy advised her father to move the family to safety. In April that year, Elizabeth, her mother, and her brother boarded the SS Manhattan and sailed to America. Her father stayed behind to close the gallery but joined them later. They settled first in Pasadena, then in Beverly Hills, quickly becoming part of Hollywood's elite social scene. Elizabeth was only 7, but the move changed her life forever. Even as a toddler, she had a natural presence. At 3, she began dance lessons, impressing everyone with her talent. She was so skilled that she even performed for Princess Elizabeth and Princess Margaret, something almost unimaginable for most children. Her parents' connections helped open these doors. Her mother, a former actress, still had ties to the British upper class, and people in Los Angeles had already heard of Elizabeth's abilities by the time they arrived. When a family friend suggested she take a Hollywood screen test, no one was surprised. She had already performed for royalty. The movie cameras were simply the next step. At just 10 years old, she made her film debut in There's One Born Every Minute, 1942, for Universal Pictures, signing a 7-year contract. But after just one film, Universal dropped her, deciding she looked too mature for young roles and wouldn't appeal to audiences. That decision would go down as one of Hollywood's biggest missed opportunities. MGM quickly saw her potential and signed her in 1943. At 12, she starred in National Velvet, 1944, playing Velvet Brown, a young girl who disguised herself as a boy to compete in the Grand National Horse Race. The film became a huge hit, and Elizabeth nearly won a special juvenile Oscar, coming in second to Peggy and Garner. But her success came at a cost. To prepare for the role, she was put on a strict routine to grow taller. During filming, she fell from her horse and badly injured her back, an injury that would cause her lifelong pain. Still, the producers gave her the horse as a gift, and the role made her a star. MGM rewarded her with a new contract paying $750 a week, a fortune for a teenager in the 1940s. By the time she turned 18, Elizabeth was one of MGM's most valuable stars. The studio carefully shaped her public image, and in 1950, they arranged her first marriage to Conrad Nicky Hilton Jr., heir to the Hilton Hotel fortune. They even purchased her wedding dress. The marriage looked perfect for the cameras, but behind the scenes, it was a complete disaster. Hilton drank heavily and treated Elizabeth cruelly. One night, he kicked her so hard that she lost their baby. The marriage lasted only 8 months, and in January 1951 she divorced him for mental cruelty. The experience shattered her innocence and showed her how little the Hollywood studios cared about their stars' happiness or safety. They cared about money and image. Leaving Hilton didn't bring her peace. MGM was furious about the divorce, worried it would hurt their public image. As punishment, they forced her into a cheap romantic comedy, Love is Better Than Ever, 1952. It was far beneath her talent, and it didn't help her career. The message was clear: if you disobey the studio, you'll pay the price. This was how Hollywood operated, especially with women. But in 1952, things turned around. Elizabeth appeared in Ivanhoe. She didn't like her small role, but the movie became a smash hit. In just 39 days, it earned $1.3 million. By the end, it had made $5.8 million in the US and Canada and another $5 million overseas, a total of $11 million worldwide. It was MGM's top film that year, a hit in England, and earned 3 Oscar nominations and 2 Golden Globe nods. Even when she disliked a part, audiences still came to see her. That same year, her personal life shifted again. She married British actor Michael Wilding and was expecting her first child. Money was tight, so she signed a new 7-year contract with MGM, earning $4,700 a week, worth more than $55,000 a week today. The deal included a loan for a house and work for Wilding, but it gave the studio even more control over her career. She wanted better roles but had to take what they gave her. She was trapped in a system that valued profit over people. By the late 1950s, Elizabeth's life was a storm. On May 12, 1956, she hosted a dinner at her Benedict Canyon home. The night took a terrible turn when her close friend, actor Montgomery Clift, left early and crashed his car into a telephone pole just down the road. His face was shattered, his jaw broken, his nose smashed, and his teeth knocked out. Elizabeth raced to the wreck barefoot, reaching him before the ambulance. Clift was choking on his own teeth. Without hesitation, she reached into his throat and pulled out shards of teeth and bone, saving his life. His face was never the same, and his career suffered. He became addicted to painkillers and alcohol, and studios considered him uninsurable. In 1959, when MGM refused to cast him in Suddenly, last summer, Elizabeth gave them an ultimatum: cast Clift or she'd quit. When they still hesitated, she offered her own $500,000 salary as insurance. He got the part, and the film earned multiple Oscar nominations. But despite her loyalty, she couldn't save him from his own decline. On July 23, 1966, Clift died of a heart attack at 45. Elizabeth called him her soulmate, the one who understood her best. His death, along with the earlier loss of her husband Mike Todd, left her heartbroken. Her marriage to Todd had been her happiest. They wed on February 2, 1957, in Acapulco and had a daughter, Liza, later that year. Todd adored her and showered her with grand gestures, from massive diamonds to renting Madison Square Garden for her birthday. But on March 27, 1958, his private plane, the Lucky Liz, crashed in New Mexico, killing him instantly. Elizabeth was 26. The shock was unbearable. In her grief, she turned to Todd's best friend, Eddie Fisher, who was married to America's sweetheart, Debbie Reynolds. The affair caused a national scandal. Fisher divorced Reynolds and married Elizabeth on May 12, 1959, just hours after his divorce became final. But Elizabeth later admitted she never loved him. He was simply a crutch during her mourning. The marriage was lonely, and she even attempted suicide by taking sleeping pills in front of him. When she fell for Richard Burton in 1961, Fisher's jealousy turned dangerous. He sometimes stood over her as she slept, holding a gun to her head, telling her she was too pretty to shoot. Eventually, she fled with her children. That same year, she won her first Oscar for Butterfield 8, a film she despised but took to end her MGM contract. She believed the win was more about sympathy than talent. She had nearly died from pneumonia, undergone a tracheotomy, and stopped breathing 4 times. Newspapers even reported her death. Between 1958 and 1964, Elizabeth endured more pain, scandal, and public hatred than most could imagine. She was called America's most hated woman, received death threats, and faced protesters holding signs that read, "Liz, go home." Yet she survived. "I am a survivor," she later said. In 1963, Cleopatra shook Hollywood to its core. With a budget of $44 million, over $426 million today, it became the most expensive film ever made. Production was chaos, directors were fired, sets rebuilt, and Elizabeth nearly died from pneumonia before filming had to move from London to Rome. But the real drama was her affair with Richard Burton on set. Their romance became bigger news than the movie itself, fueling ticket sales and helping save 20th Century Fox from bankruptcy. In early 1962, Elizabeth Taylor and Richard Burton's affair burst into the public eye. Both were married at the time, Taylor to Eddie Fisher and Burton to Sybil Williams. Everything changed when a photograph surfaced of them embracing on a yacht in Ischia, Italy. The press erupted, and suddenly the private lives of movie stars could no longer be hidden. The scandal grew so intense that 20th Century Fox actually stopped filming Cleopatra. Every day of delay cost the studio $100,000, a staggering sum for the time. The stress was so heavy that people on set collapsed from exhaustion, and the production manager became so ill he had to leave. He died soon after. Burton's own diary described nights of overwhelming desire, calling Taylor an eternal one-night stand. Even when filming stopped, they couldn't stop touching or kissing each other. The affair turned Cleopatra from a troubled production into a worldwide sensation, changing Hollywood and the press forever. But the public wasn't united in fascination. There was also outrage. In 1962, the Vatican's newspaper condemned Taylor, accusing her of erotic vagrancy for being with Burton while still married. It called their relationship an insult to the nobility of the hearth. The criticism made headlines around the globe, and some American politicians even proposed banning them from returning to the United States. Their romance became both a symbol of freedom and of shameless excess. Security on the set had to be tightened, and Italian authorities, including the local version of the FBI, became involved after threats were made against Taylor. But neither she nor Burton backed down. Taylor divorced Fisher, and on March 15, 1964, just 10 days after the divorce became final, she married Burton in Montreal. To the world, it was both a great love story and a scandal. At the same time, Taylor was rewriting Hollywood's business rules. For Cleopatra, she became the first actor, male or female, to be paid $1 million for a single film. She negotiated $50,000 a week in overtime, and because the movie dragged on for 2 years instead of the planned 16 weeks, she ultimately earned nearly $7 million, or about $60 million today. She even secured a share of the profits, something no star had done before, paving the way for future actors to demand better deals. She negotiated parts of this historic contract from her bathtub, relaying demands through Eddie Fisher, and toasted with champagne when Fox agreed. Burton's diary entries revealed the depth of his obsession with her. He wrote about her beauty in raw, poetic terms, calling her fantastically beautiful, and describing her body in vivid detail. He said she was beautiful beyond the dreams of pornography, and that being apart from her left him with an ache in the stomach. He believed she made him a better man, but he also admitted he was completely under her spell. In 1966, at just 33, Taylor shocked audiences by transforming herself for Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf? She gained 30 pounds, aged herself with makeup, and portrayed a bitter, unglamorous woman. Known as one of the world's great beauties, she stunned critics with her fearless performance. The film earned 13 Oscar nominations, won 5, and brought Taylor her second Best Actress award. All 4 main actors were nominated, a first in Oscar history. The raw, brutal story broke rules in American cinema, and decades later, in 2013, the Library of Congress preserved it as a cultural treasure. Off-screen, her marriage to Burton was as intense as their performances. They fought ferociously, often fueled by alcohol. Burton described a 1969 fight in which Taylor, drunk and angry, struck him in the head with her ringed fingers, saying, "If any man had done that, I'd have killed him." They accused each other of drunkenness, lying, greed, and pride. Their love was fiery, but their conflicts were fiercer. They drank heavily, sometimes starting at breakfast and continuing until they collapsed at night. Taylor admitted to mixing Jack Daniels with Demerol while in the hospital, saying it left her higher than a kite. In June 1974, they divorced for the first time, but 16 months later, they remarried in Botswana. Taylor wore green with feathers, Burton wore red socks and a red shirt, and the ceremony lasted just 20 minutes. The reunion didn't last. Within 9 months, they were separated again, divorcing for the second and final time in July 1976. No amount of love could overcome the jealousy, drinking, and destructive patterns that haunted them. Taylor married politician John Warner later that year, helping him win a Senate seat. But life in Washington bored her and left her lonely. She rebelled in small ways, like wearing purple to a Republican ladies' lunch when told not to. By 1981, the marriage had collapsed, and the divorce was finalized the next year. Her health and spirit declined during this period. Depression set in, her weight gain was mocked in the press, and her dependence on pills and alcohol worsened. Between 1983 and 1988, 3 doctors gave her 1,000 prescriptions for 28 different drugs, in amounts so extreme that one expert thought she must be dead. Her family and friends staged an intervention in December 1983, and she entered the Betty Ford Center, admitting, "I'm Elizabeth, I'm an addict and an alcoholic." She stayed 7 weeks, sharing rooms, doing chores, and confronting her addiction. She later revealed that her drinking had always been tied to shyness. She drank for courage, but it left her feeling worse. From 1964 to 1965, journalist Richard Merriman recorded over 40 hours of interviews with Taylor while ghostwriting her memoir. These sessions took place in hotel suites, on ocean liners, and in smoky, cocktail-filled rooms. She often paused to say something was off the record, believing she had full control over what would be used. She spoke openly about failed marriages, heartbreak with Eddie Fisher, her abuse-filled first marriage, and private moments with James Dean, details she left out of her published book. The tapes remained hidden for decades until they were rediscovered after Merriman's death in 2015. In 2024, they became the centerpiece of the HBO documentary Elizabeth Taylor, The Lost Tapes. For the first time, the public could hear her unfiltered voice, laughing, crying, and confessing with brutal honesty. She admitted to feeling like a fraud, insecure despite her beauty, and emotionally scarred by her early entry into adulthood. She spoke of the miscarriage caused by abuse in her first marriage, the scandals that followed her for decades, and the loneliness behind the glamour. These recordings revealed the real woman beneath the legend, vulnerable, wounded, and endlessly human. Elizabeth Taylor grew up in the public eye, shaped by Hollywood studios from a young age, and carried the weight of fame throughout her life. She often said she lived as 2 different people. The real Elizabeth, known only to her family, and the cellophane Elizabeth, a carefully crafted Hollywood image seen by millions but truly known by no one. The real Elizabeth longed for love and an ordinary life, while the public figure smiled for cameras and endured endless gossip. Even her assistant, Tim Mendelsohn, noticed how clearly she kept these 2 sides apart. In 1985, the AIDS crisis was growing rapidly, and fear gripped the world. When her close friend Rock Hudson died of the disease that year, it deeply affected her. While many stars stayed silent or distanced themselves from the issue, Taylor took a bold and public stand. She co-founded the American Foundation for AIDS Research, AMFAR, in 1985 and used her fame to bring attention to the crisis. She didn't just lend her name, she actively raised nearly $325 million for research, supported over 2,000 scientists worldwide, and in 1991 created the Elizabeth Taylor AIDS Foundation to provide direct care to patients. She visited the sick, led fundraisers, spoke before Congress, and fought against harmful policies like the 1987 U.S. travel ban for people with HIV. At a time when AIDS was surrounded by fear and stigma, Taylor became a fearless advocate, changing how the public viewed the disease and those affected by it. She was also a sharp and innovative businesswoman. In 1987, she launched her first perfume, Passion, followed by White Diamonds in 1991, which became one of the best-selling celebrity fragrances of all time. By 2018, White Diamonds had earned $1.5 billion, and even today, 20% of its sales go to her AIDS foundation. Taylor was involved in every step of the process, from designing the scent to shaping the advertising, turning her perfume empire into an even greater source of wealth than her acting career. By the time she died, her estate was valued between $600 million and $1 billion, proof of her extraordinary success beyond the silver screen. Her final marriage was unlike any she'd had before. She met Larry Fortensky, a construction worker 20 years younger than her, at the Betty Ford Clinic, where both were receiving treatment. They married in 1991 at Michael Jackson's Neverland Ranch in a highly publicized event. Despite the media frenzy, their relationship was more down-to-earth than her earlier romances. However, the pressure took its toll, and they divorced in 1996. Fortensky received $1 million in the settlement and later $800,000 in her will. In her later years, Taylor continued to live life on her own terms, following her heart and staying true to herself. She passed away on March 23, 2011, at Cedars-Sinai Medical Center in Los Angeles, with her 4 children by her side. She was 79. Her death marked the end of a golden era in Hollywood. People around the world mourned not just a glamorous star, but a woman who had been a fighter, a humanitarian, and a trailblazer. Her legacy lives on through her films, her business empire, and the work of her AIDS Foundation, which continues to fight for those in need.